I got hit with one of those lovely viruses this week, and Thursday found me too weak to do anything but lie on the couch in a blanket and click on news articles on my iPad. I read the news most every day, but not like this, not without doing anything else all day, but clicking and drinking tea. And as I clicked and read words, what I saw was bodies. What I realized with startling intensity was that everything I was reading about was human bodies, really, locked in internal and literal combat, fighting, suffering, loving, yearning, dying, surviving. I saw Aleppo. I watched videos sent by people trapped in East Aleppo who looked into the camera and asked us, "Don't forget us. Don't forget me," they said, and I will not. I will not forget them. I will not forget how they were able to speak to the world through the miracle of technology, even as bombs whistled behind them through the air. I know some of those people may have been Islamist extremists, what we would call terrorists. But I will not forget them, and I will not forget their humanity. I will not forget their eyes. I will not forget their children, who are not anything of any political stripe, their babies, who deserved a lifetime of their own. I saw that among those bodies in crisis, there was yet care and outrage and love, and I knew that there was grace even there, because there is no place where grace is not. And I clicked, and I hit links, and I saw in Texas a judge overturning a law that required women to provide funerals for their fetuses. I saw the reproductive freedom fighters celebrating this tiny concession to the autonomy of women's bodies. And I saw that women's bodies are full of grace and that they should not be subject to government control or anyone's control. I saw more human bodies out in the cold this time, Native American men, women, trans people, and youth and their allies at Standing Rock, and African American bodies and children in Flint, Michigan, where they are putting their bodies on the line and showing up to advocate for the right to drink unpoisonous water, to drink, to bathe in, to cook with, to add to their children's oatmeal in the morning. And I saw that every body has the inalienable basic human right to eat and drink good food and water. And right here in our community, I checked my emails, click, and I saw people lined up in the snow to be fed by soup kitchens like my brother's table in Lynn, where so many of you from this church gathered yesterday under Jeff Gunther's guidance and the good works of the social justice ministry team. All of you organizers and workers and good people, and your hands chopped and diced and cooked and served and cleaned and poured coffee and sat and listened to other bodies, all sharing one warm room on a cold day and happy first snow. And I saw more bodies, those of North Carolina residents, who showed up to protest an underhanded theft of political power by one legislature seeking to tie the political hands of their successors. And I saw journalists being arrested there, free bodies handcuffed and physically removed from the premises for exercising their constitutional rights. And it occurred to me that it is not an accident that we use the same word for vigorous activity as we do for the practice of democracy. We exercise it, and it can be sweaty business. I saw that we are in a time that will require us, as far as we are able, to bring our actual bodies to places of injustice as often as we can, because nothing makes an issue so real and so relevant as when human beings flood the scene with their incarnate, sacred presence. Mary Galtieri, I don't think Mary's here this morning, but she's a member of this church, and she suggested to me last week that we should get a church bus so that we have an easy means to go places together. Just get on our bus and show up. Dear Santa, I saw all of this, and I saw the power and vulnerability and sanctity of the human body and its perennial struggles, and I saw our beauty and our savagery as a species. And I put on a little hat to warm my head, and I prayed, and I realized, oh my God, it's so easy to live in my head. It's so easy to believe in a transcendent God, whatever God may be, that mysterious power way out there somewhere. And then I remembered, oh yeah, we're in Advent. I remembered the sacred story told at this season. And I remembered with a big, V8. This is a sacred story about how God itself wants to be and chooses to be born one of us in this mess, in this savage and beautiful form, this powerful and this vulnerable. There's a book called The Five Love Languages, whose author, Gary Chapman, says that the 5 love languages we all have these are the ones you can have. Words of affirmation, honey, you're wonderful. Quality time, receiving gifts, acts of service, and physical touch. And I saw most especially this past week that God's love language is incarnation. Whatever our quibbles with the supernatural elements of the Christmas story, I hope our skepticism can live side by side with a reverent appreciation for why this story has mattered so profoundly to human beings across such a long period of time and has spread to so many different places on our planet, because it is a sacred story about a God actually choosing to be one of us, not above, not observing from a cloud, but with us, as vulnerable as any of us and more vulnerable than many of us. In those days, Caesar Augustus issued a decree that a census or a registry should be taken of the entire Roman world. This was the first census that took place while Quirinius was governor of Syria, and everyone went to their own town to register. Did you notice that? Syria? I'm not drawing a parallel between Joseph and Mary having to leave Nazareth to be registered with the proposed registration of Muslims in America. That would not be historically accurate. That is not what that census was about. It was not to track religious minorities. What is entirely accurate, however, is that baby Jesus was born into a Jewish family which was under Roman occupation, and that his life was in danger because of a megalomaniacal and paranoid governor named Herod. Remember him? Now, Herod was a real fancy pants, a real rich guy, and major egotist. He liked to assess particularly crushing taxes on his people, because what he really loved to do is build enormous edifices and put his name on them. I'm not making this up. And they were gorgeous. They really were. They were splendid. But the story goes that he was so freaked out and threatened by what the three wise men, or the three kings of Orient, told him, that a king of the Jews would be born in Bethlehem. He had all the young Jewish boys in the area slaughtered. Now, this story shows up in the infancy narrative of the Gospel of Matthew, and it may have startled you as a kid when you heard it on Christmas Eve. Does anybody remember hearing that? And you were like, what? This is not a matter of historical record, this murder of the innocents, as it's called. It is, however, it most certainly is an accurate reflection of the treatment of Jewish lives and bodies under the Roman Empire anytime they got uppity or tried to rebel in any way against their subjugation under Roman rule. For instance, that census that Luke mentions, well, when a group of Jews known as the Zealots, and Jesus may have been in this sect, protested the repressive taxation resulting from the census, there was a very brutal suppression by the Romans. So the early people hearing this gospel narrative would have understood what it was talking about, what it was referencing. During that suppression by the Romans, thousands of young Jewish men were crucified. Thousands. And this was meant to make a point to the rest of the Jews: behave, pay up, or die. The tensions after this squelched uprising simmered for 50 years and resulted in another uprising, and that led to the destruction of the temple in the year 70 or so AD. And this is what God supposedly signed up for? Yes, this specific experience, that is one powerful, game-changing statement about what love looks like. That is a pretty staggering idea. You think of that phrase in the Bible, "For God so loved the world." You remember that phrase? To choose to say, that's where I choose to be born. I've wondered for a long time about the teaching that we are made in God's image and what that could mean, and I have always assumed that it meant somehow in our consciousness, that we were made in the image of the divine, somehow being conscious of being alive, that's somehow the most holy thing that about the human experience. I had assumed that being made in God's image probably referred to our capacity to wonder, to feel awe, to care about life, and to love other people. So all emotional, all internal experiences. I thought that was the most godly thing about us. But this week, these times, these days, those babies in the rubble in East Aleppo, that tiny body of a little boy washed up on the shore in Turkey, one of the most devastating images of the past year. Godliness is in everything we live in our bodies too. So the Christmas story, the Jesus event as we sometimes call it, is a story about holiness being in that very human experience, all of it. All of it. In you and me. In our strength and our aches and our pains as we age. Our precious impermanence. Our children downstairs making crafts and running around. You walking or wheeling into coffee hour or pulling into the parking lot. You on your knees bathing a frail elder whom you love, who trusts her body in the care of yours. You shopping for cookie fixings. You scooping up mashed potatoes, putting them on a plate and smiling at someone in a line who hasn't seen a smile in a long time. And you, losing your physical powers, but still fiercely in love with the world and wanting to help it. You recovering from pneumonia. You learning how to walk and having your diaper changed. And you asleep and waking and breathing. And in every moment that the miracle of creation surges through you, that is God's love language. And you are the instrument through which it is expressed. The holiness at the heart of being that stitched you together in your mother's womb did not leave you then and has never left you for 1 second since you wailed your first cry into this broken world. This is a sermon that doesn't end. This is a sermon that doesn't end with a thought or an idea. It is a sermon that continues in our bodies, in these instruments. And so today it continues in a song that I hope will have a little bit of a different meaning for you this morning than it may have ever had.